This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's edition of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Adam the Jock Straczynski. On today's show, we've got Fallout from AEW's Full Gear. We've got a Survivor Series War Game preview for you. We've got this WWE champ being sidelined for what may be an eternity, but possibly it could be some storyline stuff. We're going to get into all of that, as well as Adam Copeland being close, but not quite ready to be cleared, right, for AEW? We'll see. We'll get into all of it. Also, Tony Khan pulling some WWE moves. Help me break it all down, sort it all out. He's the one. He's the only. He is the Doc, John Macaroon. What's up, cuz?
It's War Games, and my goodness, did SmackDown deliver probably one of the best 5 minutes that people were excited to see. But we'll talk about it. Did I like Roman Reigns sitting down with CM Punk with the wise man intervening? It'll be interesting, but I'm very excited to talk about Full Gear. I enjoyed it. When I kind of removed the idea of like, okay, does this make sense storyline wise? Does this help the company? I just said, okay, outside of things making sense, can these performers just get me to enjoy the match? A lot of them did. So it was an intriguing pay-per-view. I definitely didn't agree with a lot of the booking, but I just removed that. I said, no matter what, whenever my thoughts went to, do I like this booking? I just said, I don't care. Do I like the spots? Do I like the psychology? Does this match bore me? And that's kind of where I went with it. And by and large, I gave it and I graded it a B+. I thought that the performers really worked hard to try and get that crowd to get involved in their matches.
Yeah, I think this is kind of the recipe for AEW right now, right? Like, regular television programming, not great, and storylines don't really make sense. But they deliver on their pay-per-views. Even if it's a B or a C-list pay-per-view, they're still giving you some good stuff. And the matches were good. The overall pacing of the card for having this many matches was really good. And from the kickoff show all the way down to the main event, I thought it was good. But I do think there are things that just don't make sense with what AEW is trying to do and what they're trying to tell you. And we're going to kind of get into some of that, and we're going to kind of sort some of that out. So we kick off this pay-per-view with Anna Jay, who defeats Deonna Purrazzo. Now, this is a match Deonna Purrazzo hasn't had a match in forever and a day. And this was a match that she had to go beg to be put on the card. She's from, I believe this took place in New Jersey. She's from New Jersey, and she had to go beg Tony Khan to get this put on the card, which is absolutely crazy to me. They do not do enough with their women. Buddy Matthew then defeats Deontay Martin, Mordos, and Commander. Then we have AJ the Costco guy who beats QT Marshall. We talked a little bit about this last week. I want to know what this says about what you're providing everybody when this is probably the hottest thing on your pay-per-view, and this was the thing that was the most reactive to the fans. The fans were absolutely batshit crazy about AJ the Costco guy. And look, I guess he delivered, right? But this was the hottest thing on the card. There's no doubting it. What does this say about your company when you've got some YouTube guy going up against one of your producers in the back, and that's the best thing on your card? I feel like that should tell you something about what you're trying to do and what you're trying to establish. You need to do a better job with your storylines when people more care about the Riz and the Rizzler and AJ the Costco guy than, I don't know, probably your AEW champion, Jon Moxley.
Yeah, millions of views. Isn't it crazy? When you think about how
you just kept flooding me with stuff from the Rizzler, bro. I had no idea who this guy was.
I was like, wow, what's going on with the Rizzler and everything going on? It was crazy because he's so popular. It was just unbelievable to see the response, right? Millions of views. What it says is that, look, you know, wrestling companies, it's not new. They've used mainstream media to try and get people's attentions for so long. So it's just one of those deals where you got to accept it that AEW is looking for any attention possible. So, you know, I know you and I and a lot of others are not going to like that AEW went in that direction. But companies like WWE, WCW, they've all done it in the past. So it's just one of those deals where you got to take the attention when you can get it and when you can get some mainstream appeal. What have you and I talked about? We can't be hypocrites that, you can't only appeal to the 250,000 hardcore fans that you have. I would say that, even though the purists like you and I may go, ooh, and kind of scoff at the nature of doing it that way, I think that by getting the attention, you start to draw in more people that don't know about your company. So I would think that by and large, the rewards were bigger than the risks. A lot of people liked it, man. It was crazy.
Yeah, it was very, very popular. And this was something that I had a hard time wrapping my head around. But who the hell am I? I had no idea who the Rizzler was, and I didn't recognize his Riz was that strong. So bad on me. Next we got into the main card here. We had Private Party. They win a fatal four-way for the AEW tag team titles. In this fatal four-way, there was a lot of teasing of some dissension between the Acclaim. We'll see how that plays out going forward over the next couple weeks. MJF then defeats Roderick Strong. Kyle O'Reilly comes out, shoves Adam Cole. So that storyline is continuing. You got to see a little bit of that on Dynamite as they're entering this Battle Royal with MJF. We'll see what comes of that over the next couple of weeks as we get towards that Battle Royal and get into that Battle Royal. Mercedes Moné ends up defeating Chris Statlander to retain the AEW TBS Championship. So earlier I said some stuff on this card just doesn't make sense. Moné ends up winning this match, and she won it clean. She got a heater on the outside. Camille did not play a part. I'm not sure if they're trying to change her baby face or, again, this is just maybe not good booking. What were your thoughts on Moné winning this title clean? Now, Statlander put on a really good show. This was a quality match, but Moné is supposed to be this dastardly heel, and she keeps kind of winning matches clean. To me, it doesn't necessarily make sense. If you're trying to elevate her as a dirtier heel and you're trying to help boost Statlander as a bigger babyface, if you want them to both be tweeners, fine. But if you want to kind of add some separation and some differentiation, I kind of felt like Moné should have maybe have won doing some heel tactics, maybe getting Camille in. Now, we did see Camille get fired, or I should say quit, on Dynamite and leave Moné. But what are your thoughts on Moné winning this match clean and not maybe using some of that outside help, using some of that outside influence to help retain this belt?
That's interesting. I liked the match. I thought that maybe this was, now look, it's a sample size that people will say, okay, it's just based on the fact that Mercedes Moné has not had a lot of good matches. But I thought this match was probably one of the better ones that she could have, where you could say that she was able to showcase what she's about, kind of a little bit better psychology with the opponent. So I didn't look at it from that angle. I looked at it like, you know what, just comparing this to what she's done in the past, it's a nice building block to move forward. And the right person won. Yes, you could have done different things to, extend storylines and to involve, some flavor with Camille and things like that. But by and large, as a whole, I thought the work was better, and it was a lot better. It was a little bit cleaner than some of her previous matches. Now, I'm not saying that compared to top women's matches that it was a masterpiece, but I thought, okay, for where she has been to what she could do, this match is something that should be expected at the very least moving forward all the time.
Yeah, I'm going to be curious to see what they end up doing with her, because the crowd does not seem to really like her.
Right.
Some of her promo work's not been great. Like you said, this was a really good in-ring match. This was quality. So thumbs up there. But it's going to be interesting because I'm just not seeing the return on the investment. And that being said, I don't think they're going to do anything with her, like get rid of her or fire her or anything like that. But I'm wondering what they're going to do with her character-wise to maybe help it connect more with the fans. You have seen heels come out and they get booed by the crowd lustily, but they're still they're still over. It doesn't feel like she's over. They feel like they boo her because they don't appreciate the work that she's doing. You know what I'm saying? So we'll see what happens. Maybe we've got a character shift coming. I'm not sure. Next, we got Jay White, who defeated Hangman Page. This was followed up by Kyle Fletcher defeating Will Ospreay. I thought this was a fantastic match, especially if you like the flippy shit. In your estimation, was this the match of the night?
I enjoyed it. Look, man, we talked about Kyle Fletcher and Will Ospreay, right? We said who should win this match, and I was staunchly in the favor of Will Ospreay winning because he's the bigger star. But, when you remove the layers and you say, okay, how do you build stars? Is you put guys over. Now, is he worthy of it? I think that, yeah. When you look at the match, I just thought that the work in the ring was spectacular. I thought the chemistry was there. It was like two pros going at it. It was intriguing. It had everything timed right. It was exciting. So it's up there, and I put it as an A-plus match. I enjoyed it. I watched it again. I thought, okay, this is a good match. This is something that they can build on. Now, could they have done it differently? Sure. Will Ospreay, I think, is the biggest star in the company. But you know what? It's one of those deals where Will Ospreay can lose any given night, and his star can rise. That's how awesome Will Ospreay is. So I just think that it was actually, in the end, probably a smart booking decision to start to create a new star. Because now I'm like, you know what? I want to see where they build on. Now, the most important thing is you have to build on the character and let him ride some momentum now that he got the win.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be fun to watch what they end up doing with Kyle Fletcher because, like you said, I felt like a couple weeks ago, this guy had that big star feel. You put him into a match with Will Ospreay. I think they both come out better from that match. And now you got to kind of keep the momentum going. You got to keep pushing. You got to keep building. AEW has this habit of getting a guy to the starting block and then getting him out of the gate. But somewhere right around that first turn, they end up tripping up over their own feet, and that person never really gets going again. I look at somebody like Willow Nightingale, who they could have done a lot more with. Chris Statlander at one time was that person. Jack Perry coming back to AEW was that guy. And I feel like they've kind of faded to Takeshita was that guy. They're trying to relight that fire, that spark. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can kind of follow this through and not drop the ball here. Speaking of dropping the ball, the women's world title. We finally had Mariah May and her champagne celebration. In this event, she ends up turning on Mina Shirakawa. She attempts to attack her, goes to hit her with a champagne bottle. Instead, Shirakawa flips it around on her, gets the upper hand. Look, I'm hoping we get a really good match out of these two at Winter is Coming. You need to help elevate this title. Mariah May really hasn't wrestled a whole bunch. This title feels like it's non-existent. There was a moment where I was trying to figure out who all the champions were, and I was like, who's the women's champion? It took me a minute to realize it was Mariah May. And that kind of tells you where it's at. It's no longer top of mind, no longer in the back of your head. It's just kind of irrelevant at this moment in time. And you need to have a good match. Hopefully you get that out of Shirakawa. We'll see what takes place. Next match was Daniel Garcia defeating Jack Perry to become your new AEW TNT champion. Takeshita ends up defeating Ricochet to retain the AEW International title. Bobby Lashley then defeats Swerve Strickland in our co-main event. We get to the main event. Jon Moxley defeats Orange Cassidy in what I'm going to call is a fight, and he stays AEW World Champion. I do have a question, though, because there was a lot going on here. Was this too overbooked? And I just want to fast forward to the ending, kind of how this all plays out. So the Death Riders interfere. The conglomeration helps even the odds and intervene a little bit. Willow Nightingale makes her return and then attacks Marina Shafir to a huge pop. We get an Orange Cassidy pinfall attempt when he gets the briefcase and strikes Jon Moxley. Wheeler Yuta then hits a berserker knee behind the referee's back as Moxley hits a Death Rider for the win. After the match, Yuta pours disinfectant on Cassidy. Hangman Page hits the ring and hits Yuta in the back with a chair. Christian Cage then comes out and lays out Jon Moxley. Cage attempts to execute the contract that he has for the world title. Cage then takes forever. Then Jay White lays out Cage. This then lets the Death Riders attacking Jay White. This continues as Darby Allin crashes a car into the Death Riders' truck, forcing the Death Riders to now steal a SUV and retreat. From all of this, we're supposed to get a fatal four-way in December. Bro, there was so much that went on in this final little bit. It's unreal to try to unpack this and explain what's taking place to somebody. And when you follow up what you get on Dynamite, to me, it just didn't do a good enough job of really explaining everything away. What were your thoughts on this ending? Because this was nuts. There was just so much going on, bro. At a certain point, just fade to black. It's okay. This was absolutely bonkers to me.
Yes, I only wrote 2 words for this review for this match. I put WTF overbooked. So for you guys listening, enjoy what Adam just said. Rewind it, and then when Adam's sharing everything that just happened, just put the speed at 1.5, and you'll laugh your ass off, because that is exactly how much shit they tried to cram into this. I was like, oh my God, what is going on? Why are they involving 4 or 5 more angles off of the main event? Like, you literally basically just said, okay, don't worry about the main event. Let's focus on a bunch of other angles that are going to spin off right away. It's like, you have another television show that you could have put all of this on that might have been even more interesting than the shit that you put on
They
Wednesday.
got 2 television shows that they could have put this on, and there was enough material.
It was too much. It was like, we got to get all these angles kicked off right now, and everybody's going to pay attention. It's like, you do realize this is the end of a nearly 3.5 hour pay-per-view, and you're going to have to keep everybody's attention and make it so that people want to continue to be invested in all this. I left that going, why? Why would you do that? And I just said, okay, I get it. You have these ideas and you have the eyeballs and you think that you can do this all in the main event. But part of the company part of wrestling is about timing. And my goodness. So it was interesting to see at the time. So that was the lens. Yes, that was my notes. It was overbooked, but it was interesting at the very least to see where they went with it, because you were like, okay, so from the perspective of just not caring about what any of that meant, it was interesting, intriguing, because you were like, oh, what's coming next? So I can kind of maybe put myself in Tony Khan's shoes, and he's probably thinking, what would get people to keep talking? Well, let's do this. And then he's like, you know what? But let's do this. And then let's do this. It's like, man, it kind of has the feel that, at a birthday party when Tony Khan's dad would bring him a cake and you'd be like, why does the cake have sprinkles, frosting, whipped cream, ice cream all on it? And he's like, look, that's what Tony likes. He likes sprinkles, whipped cream, chocolate, cherries, and sauce all over this cake. My God. And he's like, yeah, that's what Tony likes. And so you do realize, guys, you could like make some cupcakes. You could make some fruits and vegetables, some nice, other things that people would like. You just throw it all in one cake and just give it to everybody. And that's what Tony does. So you gotta deal with it, because, it's hard for me and you to put ourselves in the mindset that Tony Khan may not be as sophisticated as a wrestling promoter than you and I would like. Like there's like you kind of maybe would wish we could fast forward 20 years when we see Tony Khan be like 55, where he can kind of slow down and not be so frenetic and not be like, well, I like this, let's do it. Well, I like this, let's do it. It's like, okay, you don't have to do it 5 minutes after a main event that 2 guys busted their ass to fight, so, but that's what he does, and that's what he's entitled to do as the owner of the company. Would I have done it that way? Absolutely not. I would have just had, Moxley enjoy the win and maybe do a little promo and set the stage for the next show. But, you can keep it simple. You just have Tony Schiavone walk in the ring and talk to Moxley and set the stage for what's next, and maybe a little teaser for what's coming, and just stamp the fact that you're a winner, and stamp the fact that I told you guys what I was going to do. Here's why I'm the best. Stay tuned for what's next. You can't miss it. Something simple, not just frenetic angle after angle after angle, but that's what Tony Khan does. And, by and large, probably what prevented, maybe psychologically for me, what prevented me from giving the pay-per-view an A, but it was a B+. And, credit to Jon Moxley, man. He makes those fights damn near interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think this might be just a sign of our age, right? Because the one thing we say about AEW all the time, and if anybody's out there and they agree with us, or if they maybe think this, let us know. You can tweet us at Detroit Podcast or at AdamRSTROZ. I think maybe we're just getting older, because the one thing that we say all the time about AEW is you just need to slow down. You need to slow down, let it breathe. Just take it easy. You don't need to cram 10 pounds of shit into a 5-pound bag. Just take it easy. Like you said, right? They've got multiple shows where they could put parts of this stuff on, and sometimes simpler is better. Kiss. Keep it simple, stupid. That's all they really have to do. Like you said, you could have walked into the ring with Tony Schiavone, held a microphone for him, and he could have basically said, this is an open challenge. You want this? Come get this. If you think you can save AEW from me and my Death Riders, come get some. And they could have started basically going out and stalking Christian Cage, because Christian Cage isn't going to actually sign that contract unless he's got the upper hand to do it. So you can go after him, provoking him in the meantime, you could have a guy like Darby Allin who wants his spot back because remember Jon Moxley took it from him. That's how Jon Moxley got that title. And you could have Hangman Page coming after what he feels is rightfully his. That's the one thing about Hangman Page. He's going through this psychosis moment where he feels he should be the world champ. And if he had to kill Swerve to get to it, he was going to kill Swerve to get to it. If he has to kill Jay White to get to it, he's going to kill Jay White to get to it. Jay White can come in and basically make the argument, too, that he deserves to be it, because if Hangman deserves to be it, well, then shit, I deserve to be it, too. And you kind of got to see a little bit of that right there on Dynamite. But, I mean, there are ways to do this where you're giving everybody time, and it's just making a little bit more sense, and it's not so rushed, and it's not just crammed into, like, the final 5 minutes of a pay-per-view. But to each their own, right? It's like I said, their television programming is sometimes soft, and they don't do a good job building storylines, which then leads you wanting more when you're going into a pay-per-view. You always come out of the pay-per-view and you're like, you know what, that was kind of worth it. It was a good show. Maybe storylines didn't make a ton of sense, but overall it was a good show. And like you said, a B, B+, B-, C+, whatever you want to give it. It was a good enough pay-per-view. It was solid. We go to calling the card. I get the point. I grabbed the Jay White and the Kyle Fletcher pick while you kept it close with the Mercedes Moné pick. I extend my lead to 3, which then leads us to WWE. And we are building towards Survivor Series. We're building towards War Games. And I think the big thing coming out of Monday Night Raw, because I think you're right, SmackDown had a primary focus of building this pay-per-view that we're getting tonight. While Monday Night Raw felt like it had a bigger focus of building what we're getting on this upcoming Monday and the weeks to come. And there were a lot of harsh words on Monday Night Raw between Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods. I wanted to get your reaction to what took place. They lost a tag team match to one of the worst tag teams in Alpha Academy, where you have you've got Otis and you've got Akira Tozawa. They end up beating them in roughly 15 seconds. There was a lot of miscommunication, and you're really kind of stoking that flame and that separation between the two. These two argue all the way up the ramp and get into the back, where they exchanged a lot of heated words. At one point, Xavier Woods said to Kofi, you know, the only reason you became champion is because we helped put you there, and then you pissed it all away in 6 seconds to Brock Lesnar. Kofi basically told Xavier Woods, I was a Hall of Famer before you met me. There's a reason why you were never in charge. Me and E knew that you were way too reckless and you couldn't handle it. And it was a lot of back and forth, a lot of words you can't take back. What did you make of this segment, especially since we have the 10-year anniversary celebration on Monday, and we're supposed to get Big E back on Monday?
Man, that's interesting, huh? I liked all of it. You know, I've liked the direction of WWE for a lot of reasons, and I look at it from the perspective of the anticipation of Big E coming back is going to be something that's going to blow the roof off of it. What's the best way to book this? Because that was the question mark that I wrote in my notes. Because you can go a couple different ways to get a couple different people over in this. And who needs to shine the most with this?
You know, I think if you are trying to gloss up a guy like Xavier Woods, he's probably the guy who needs to come out looking the best. And in this, you could have Kofi and Big E kind of turn their back on Xavier Woods. And Xavier Woods can come out and just basically hit them both with some really harsh truth bombs and just kind of try to blow up their spots. And he could end up leaving, and he could kind of go and do this rogue thing where he's the bad guy. The only thing is, I feel like if Big E is ever going to come back, right, like I would love it for it to be this moment that he gets cleared and he's able to wrestle again, right? But if you're ever going to have Big E come back, you kind of need to walk this line where if they are able to get back together, because I feel like the three of them together is absolutely incredible. Them apart, it's kind of what it is, right? They're good, but they are much better together. You have to be able to walk this fine line where you can't have Xavier basically back up a mansion and set it on both of these guys, because I don't know how you ever come back from something like that, you know? And we've seen it in wrestling before where guys have said things and guys have done stuff and they're able to kind of mend fences and they tell a good enough storyline. But you got to kind of walk this fine line. It's threading a needle, man. And this is where you get paid big bucks if you're Triple H and you're part of that creative team, because you got to thread this needle where it's going to be harsh enough, but it's going to be soft enough to where if you could and you can walk it back years later, right? Or a year later or 2 years later, and you can make things work. But I feel like Xavier Woods is the one who's got to come out looking the best in this, you know?
See, because I have a little bit of different thought in that as you were talking and as I, put my early thoughts together, I think that it would be cool if Big E and Kofi turn heel. And just absolutely destroy, like what
so
you do
like
is
a swerve where Xavier's actually the good guy and Kofi and Big E are really truly the dicks.
Exactly, where they come out and they're apologetic and they're like, you know what, we just have let all the frustrations of the last year get to us. Sorry, Xavier, you know what, the things I said were too harsh. And then, Kofi just turned and said, you know what, I probably should have told you this sooner, and then just pop him and then drop him through a chair. A little bit more rugged. A little bit more of a situation in which maybe you have Big E try to play the peacemaker and then absolutely destroy Xavier Woods, and then they could set off the feud. But either way, whoever's the heel face, I thought that their backstage maybe was just like 1 minute too long. It went back and forth, and basically, when you have 4 or 5 minutes of them just cutting into each other, it's good. It's clear, but it is funny that they're putting it the 10-year anniversary of the New Day, and you have them fighting. But I think what's good is we've all anticipated it. Now the best part will be how do they pay it off with the way in which it ends. And I hope it's creative. I hope it's good. But to me, because Kofi's like the former world champion, the guy that has a little bit more cachet, yes, Xavier's won the King of the Ring, and he's had some good angles. But I think the way you elevate him is kind of the guy that's, taking the shit and then comes back and then you keep it moving forward. You know what I mean? I think Xavier could be a more successful face than he would be a heel.
Yeah, this is going to be fun because this has kind of been brewing for a long time, right? And getting Big E back on screen in the wrestling ring, I think is going to be awesome. Like I said, I think you could surprise everybody if he comes back and he's able to wrestle, and maybe he's the glue that is able to pull these two together. Maybe that's the big swerve too. You know what I'm saying? Maybe Big E comes back and he's like, look, quit being a dummy and let's go wreck some shit. And he's able to wrestle again. That would be really, really cool too. But it's going to be fun to see. This has been a really good story. This has been a long-term build. And I do not feel like they're rushing it. I feel like they're doing just the right amount of stuff. And I felt like this Monday, it was absolutely fantastic to watch these two guys kind of implode at the seams. So it'll be fun to see what takes place this upcoming Monday. Now, switching gears to SmackDown. SmackDown, the big thing that came out of SmackDown was CM Punk owes Paul Heyman a favor. You got to see Roman Reigns and CM Punk sitting down across from each other while Paul Heyman was in the middle of the two of them. Roman was getting up to leave because he's like, I don't like to wait. He's making us wait. I don't even like this guy. What are we doing? Finally, CM Punk shows up. They sit down across from each other, and Punk's basically like, look, I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this for Paul. Paul's my guy. I'm not here to try to help you. I'm here doing a favor for him. And Paul Heyman's basically just trying to calm Roman Reigns down throughout this whole thing. Like, he's a good dude. Trust him, this, that, the other thing. Now, throughout all of this, the thing that we end up finding out is CM Punk says that I'm owed a favor. And Roman's like, I don't owe you a favor. He's like, no, not you. Him. Paul owes me a favor. He will have to take care of that at some point. And gets up, basically walks away from the table, and Roman's like, what is this favor? What do you owe him? And Paul Heyman expertly kind of avoids the questions like, my tribal chief, let's just get through Saturday. Let's get through this match, and then all will be explained, and we'll be okay. You don't have to worry about a thing, which makes you think you have to worry about a thing, because Paul Heyman's telling you don't have to worry about a thing. You can ask any of those ECW wrestlers who tried cashing those checks. Guys, you don't have to worry about a thing. Your check's going to clear as the check bounces all the way down the road. So there's this little caveat. What do you think this favor is from CM Punk for helping the OG bloodline? Because I think this is probably the most intriguing thing that we're getting, and I think this is fantastic. This was a nice little nugget that they worked in here.
Absolutely. I love the segment. But here's the thing, okay? And I tried to get into it, but I'm not into sit-downs with music. I was distracted by the music. I'm like, okay, I know that this is production. I know that's cinema. I know it's a new way of storytelling. But it comes off, the big picture, it comes off as being produced. I would have just liked to sit down to be a little bit less acted. You know what I mean? Roman Reigns is just way overacting, and it's like, I don't need you here. And I'm like, with the music playing in the background, I just couldn't, I put that in my notes. I can't get over this damn music. But outside of that, you know, the way in which Paul Heyman's like, look, you know, I thought his words were powerful. Like, look, CM Punk, he's here because if the, you know, 2.0 bloodline wins, CM Punk, you're next. They're going to take you out. So I have no idea what the favor is going to be. It's going to be intriguing. It might be an opportunity. It might be something that he needs. It might be help with, might be help against Seth Rollins when that feud kicks off. You know what I mean? Hey, I need some help. I need some scouting on your guy, or I need you in my corner when I face off against Seth. Whatever that may be, there could be so many things as we spitball it, but it was intriguing and it was awesome. But yeah, I just thought that it could have just been a little bit more real, because now when you see CM Punk, it kind of can be a little bit funny. You see CM Punk all serious with his hair, and he's sitting there and he's talking to Roman Reigns, and it was cool. It was a cool segment. I'm glad that the wrestling accounts all replayed it, so you can kind of go back and dissect it further. But it's good. Like, I think that within 2 weeks they made it pretty clear and pretty awesome that the Y is going to be very awesome. The Y is, I'm getting a favor, baby, and let's see what that's going to be.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think working on a short period of time and working in, you have history here, you've got stuff you can kind of build off of. They did a fantastic job making this absolutely interesting. And look, this was something that I kind of bagged on last week. I didn't go hard on it because I figured we'd get a good answer this week, but I thought they did a fantastic job really helping explain this away. And I like where your head's at. You brought up Seth Rollins. It sounds like what we're going to end up getting is we're going to end up getting Seth Rollins versus CM Punk, probably at WrestleMania. So you're going to have this build. This is when that favor is enacted. When CM Punk's in this match against Seth Rollins and he's like, I need a favor. And this is where Roman Reigns has to come out and help. And it helps create a bigger divide between Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns. I think that is fantastic. Again, it's layered storytelling like this that makes stuff awesome. It makes stuff really, really good. And we get some of that with our Survivor Series card. This is going to be our War Games. It's taking place today at 6 o'clock on Peacock. I believe it's coming to us from Vancouver, if I remember correctly. So early start time for them, early start time for us. We kick the show off with our Intercontinental Championship being on the line. Braun Breaker defending versus Sheamus and Ludwig Kaiser. This is a triple threat match that got made on Monday Night Raw. Who do you have winning this? You got Breaker winning it? Do you have Sheamus finally? I think if Sheamus wins this title, I think he now becomes a Grand Slam champ. That's the big intriguing thing here. Or Ludwig Kaiser, who has been told by Gunther, you need to go make your own way. You got to go find your own thing. You got to go be better than what you are right now. Is this the time to where you elevate this guy up and you allow him to get his first title and bring it back to his guy, Gunther, and be like, look, we're both champs. Let's go.
See, this is the biggest disconnect on this card in terms of what I want versus what I think is going to happen. I would love for Sheamus to win it, but again, are you going to, make the Intercontinental title this hodgepodge of bouncing around from Jay to Braun Breaker to Sheamus? I think that for Sheamus, this is a good starting point to get close to Braun Breaker and then somehow try to find a way to extend this so that the win should take place at WrestleMania. For a guy like Sheamus, he needs a bigger stage. I just don't see it. I think that it's great. It would mean more if Braun held it until WrestleMania. 5 months is good, longer than the 80, 90 days that Triple H has been liking holding titles. So to me, I'm going to say Braun Breaker wins it, but my heart would say I would not be upset if Sheamus won it. It would be a great visual. But I think that Braun Breaker has to establish that title in his second reign. You can't just take it off him after a month. Yeah,
look, I agree with you too. I think Braun Breaker wins this. I would like to see Sheamus or Ludwig Kaiser win it. I feel like you could do some really, really interesting stories with either one of those guys. Also, it'd be a nice little coronation for a guy like Sheamus. So I would like, again, like you said, brain's telling you one thing, heart wants something totally different. So we're going to go with Braun Breaker. We're going to go with our brain. it just doesn't make sense to take the title off him right now. Like, it just doesn't. And I think it'd be more interesting to see a guy like Sheamus or Kaiser win it, but you could maybe build a story, maybe at the Royal Rumble, maybe at WrestleMania, where that belt comes off him from one of these two guys. We'll see what takes place. Our next match is our United States Championship match. LA Knight is defending against Shinsuke Nakamura. These two had a little bit of a dust-up on Friday Night SmackDown. Look, I think LA Knight wins this. It'd be cool to see Nakamura come away with the title, but again, too soon. Nakamura just getting back into the picture. He was basically sitting on a shelf and nobody knew what to do with him forever and a day. I think Knight wins this. Knight's still riding this heat wave. I think it's starting to peter out a little bit and starting to fizzle a little bit. But at this moment in time, I think you keep the belt on him and you give him the moment to try to reinvent himself on the fly, maybe make himself as hot as he once was. That being said, look, on a scale of 1 to 10, this guy was a 15 at one point. I think he's somewhere down around a 6 or a 7. So it's not like he's cold. He's just nowhere near as hot as he once was. But I think he's still hot enough to be your United States champ. Who do you have winning this match?
Yeah, see, again, like I said, disconnect, because I could see Shinsuke winning it. It's been fast paced. He comes back. It's good. But I think they could have did a better job of explaining the why. Shinsuke's a badass, man, and I think he's worthy of championship. But at the same token, do they want to have it end or continue? So to me, I feel like, I feel like both of us are gonna be wrong, but I think LA Knight should win it. But if we're wrong, Shinsuke wins it and then, continues to torment LA Knight where he can get it back at the Rumble, moving forward. But I could see some value in the chase. But I just think that LA Knight has taken some. I think that what gives us clues is that LA Knight has kind of been taking the heat from Shinsuke in terms of his comeback and getting attacked and things like that, and Shinsuke targeting LA Knight. But in the end, you got to have the face pay it off, and I think it's good too for LA Knight to work with a guy like Shinsuke. This is one of those deals where the match has to establish further Shinsuke's diabolical nature, and then LA Knight having a good match to win. So you can get that rub. The idea is perfect to say, okay, LA Knight can get some rub off of working with Shinsuke Nakamura, but the matches have to deliver.
Yeah, I like where your head's at with this, where you have Nakamura basically being the tormentor, right? Maybe going into this not looking for a victory per se,
yes,
looking to annihilate LA Knight and break him down and maybe make him start thinking, make him start doing things a little bit different. I like where your head's at with that. I think that's a fantastic angle to take with this match. And this isn't the only match. This isn't the standalone. We're going to have a couple more matches. This is going to be a long-term feud that's going to go over a month or two, maybe 3. We'll see. If it does get us to WrestleMania, we're looking at something like a 4.5 month build, which is a long time for a build for a feud. So this is just the initial brick being laid in this foundation of this house that we're building for LA Knight and Shinsuke Nakamura. We'll see how it works out. All right, we get our next match, which will be the Women's War Game match. Again, we talked about how we didn't really like how this was thrown together and how it didn't necessarily make sense. But there's some stuff here that I feel like we could maybe talk about, we could maybe do. So you got Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair, Bayley now, Naomi, and Io Sky versus Liv Morgan, Nia Jax, Raquel Rodriguez, Tiffany Stratton, and Candice LeRae. Before we get into our prediction, I wanted to throw this out there because I was thinking about this. I was down in the basement grabbing some Christmas decorations for the wife, and my brain was just kind of in wrestling mode thinking about different stuff. And I was like, how do you explain away Jade Cargill being beat up, right? So, like, if she's going to be hurt long-term, we're going to talk a little bit about this later on. If she's going to be hurt long-term, and they're saying anywhere from 3 months, maybe up to a year for Jade Cargill to recover from her injury. If she's going to be hurt long-term, how do you, when you bring her back, how do you make this hot again, right? Because you've had basically a year-long build for her taking on Bianca. You've had some different interactions with Bayley and Naomi. How do you get this kind of restarted, right? And if she's not really hurt, this is just storyline. Right. This was a way to get her out of this match, because that's been the other thing that's kind of been floating around recently, is this might just be storyline. This might just be a little bit of a rumor. How do you get this working again, right? Because obviously you can't say it was Bianca, because Bianca was in the ring. Bianca was in the match. Now Bianca might be forced to vacate her title, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of this in news and notes. I had this idea, and I want to get your thoughts. What if it was Naomi and Bayley who took Jade Cargill out? What if it was Naomi and Bayley who did that? Because remember, a little bit of tension between Bayley and Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill. Naomi was always trying to kind of smooth over some of those hurt feelings. On Friday Night SmackDown, Naomi was in the ring and she said, Bayley, I know you've had a lot of issues with these people too. And she went on to name different stuff. And Bayley was like, yep. And so Naomi helping Bayley out to get into this match so Bayley can get the revenge that she seeks. And at the same time, Naomi and Bayley putting themselves in a spot where they can now enter into a tournament to get a hold of those vacated titles, and they become your new tag team champs. And it was all masterminded between Bayley and Naomi. Right now, Bayley looks like she's God's gift to Bianca because she helped her win the Women's War Game Advantage match. And the faces will now have the advantage in War Games. But in the end, it was all a giant coup between her and Naomi and Bayley to try to get those titles, get Bayley involved in this match, take out Jade Cargill so they could have a tournament to win those titles. It's just a little bit, maybe a little too convoluted, maybe a little bit too long-term booking here. I'm not really sure. I just wanted to run that by you and see what you thought about that idea to try to explain what happened to Jade Cargill, add some heat so maybe when she comes back you can get her involved and maybe want to go out after Bayley and Naomi. And really and truly, this is a good way to kind of give Naomi a new coat of paint, kind of refresh her. Instead of always being the face, she's now a heel. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's great. I think it's a great 1B option, but I don't think any answers.
1B, let's go. What's your 1A?
Yeah, 1A is what we've been talking about all the whole way through. The person that attacked Jade Cargill is Bianca Belair. She's tired of being held back by somebody. She's tired of being losing, feeling like this person hasn't progressed, feeling like all the work that has been invested in her hasn't been worthwhile, feeling like she's just the basics of, where you can kind of add some elements of realism saying, look, I thought that you were pretty good, but boy, did I miscalculate. You still belong in the minors. Like, you were brought up here to take my shine. Are you kidding me? I'm the EST. What the hell are you? Like, you've been working with me side by side for a year, and you look like you belong still at the bingo halls, so go back there. And I just think that that's the best way to ignite the feud when it happens. Now, could it happen this way where, it's all a ruse, where in the end it's going to be decided who is the one that turns on who? Is it Bianca that turns on Jade, or Jade turns on Bianca? Because the way I could look at it, if I book it for today and they say, we got to get this answer right now, Jade comes down to the ring and she thinks, they're going to clear house. It's 2-on-1. Bianca's left, along with Tiff and Jade, and everybody's cheering. They think that, Jade's going to come back and help out Bianca. And then, Jade just destroys Bianca and everyone's like, what? Tiff gets the win, 1, 2, 3 for the team that they get. And then Jade gets on the microphone and is like, you know what? I was able to get that footage. And then they show Bianca doing it. And she's like, ain't nobody, if you want to elevate Jade in the first part of the story, you say, ain't nobody going to get over on me. I know everything. You thought you could get over on me? Oh, hell no. And then you get the table and you do the thing and Jade can get over first and foremost. It doesn't make sense in terms of kind of that way in regards to, you want to keep Bianca strong so that, so that eventually if Jade wins, she gets a little bit of that rub and some of that vindication. But there's a lot of ways to do it if you want to reveal it today. But I think that the person that it has to be that ends up doing this to Jade has to be Bianca Belair. But I think the way I see it is, no matter how whatever shakes out, I think the best team in this match is the Liv Morgan team. They're badass all the way around with Tiff and Nia Jax, and I just see them being the better team.
So you got them winning then?
I do. I got them winning.
All right. I feel like this is a tough match, right? I feel like this match, and I feel like
toughest match. Yep.
The next match is really difficult to kind of pick. You're gonna go heels. I'll go faces. So I've got Rhea Ripley's team. You've got Nia Jax's team or Liv Morgan's team, however you want to put it. So I'll go good guys. You go bad guys. And our next match is the World Heavyweight Championship. It's Gunther versus Damian Priest. Now, I honestly do believe this is the hardest one to pick because I feel like you could make a case for Damian Priest to win, and I feel like you can make a case for Gunther to win. All that being said, I was back and forth all week on this match, right? I kept arguing with myself because I like to go through the picks in my head before we sit down to do this, just so I have a clear frame of mind before we start doing this, and I don't really get persuaded by you too much because you make really good points and you have a really good mind for this. And sometimes you can convince me otherwise. So all that being said, I was back and forth all week. It was like 49-51, 49-51, 51-49, 51-49, 50-50. I didn't know what to do. Basically a coin flip. As I sit here this morning, I think it's Gunther who wins this match. I don't think it's Damian Priest. I think Gunther wins this match. If anything, I think maybe you get a little bit of outside interference from the Judgment Day, and they help Gunther retain his belt because they're just so pissed off at Damian Priest. But I think it's Gunther who wins this match, and I think he starts to kind of rebuild some of that whatever he's lost, that edge that he's lost since taking a loss to Cody Rhodes. Since kind of getting pushed around, knocked around, his confidence has been shaken. I think he kind of shakes some of that off here, and it's Gunther who is now who retains his belt.
Yeah, no, I didn't give it too much thought more than I think you gave it a lot of thought. I thought it's 99.99% Gunther's going to win because you need a mega match at WrestleMania. I don't see anybody worthy right now on Raw of being the world champion. They got to do some work over the next few months to, my note is who's going to challenge Gunther before WrestleMania. And first up is Damian Priest, no problem. They got to do a better job of now elevating people to put in front of Gunther so he can destroy them. But Gunther's going to win this match. I hope that Damian Priest doesn't get his legs locked in the ring or doesn't have a situation where he can't finish the match. This match is more important for Damian Priest to kind of finish the year strong because he had a stretch there as the title holder where it was botch fest. So I just hope that it's a good, clean match where Gunther can dominate and end up winning.
All right. That brings us to our main event. And again, this is a bit of a tricky one. These should be tough. These should be difficult to pick. Roman Reigns, Sami Zayn, the Usos, and now CM Punk taking on the new bloodline. Solo Sikoa, Jacob Fatu, Tama Tonga, Tonga Loa, and Big Bronson Reed. There's been a lot made about this match. This is the match that is really selling this card. How do you see this playing out? Does the addition of CM Punk help or hurt the OG bloodline?
Yeah, no, it's going to help. The problem is that I don't think I don't know if The Rock's going to get involved. I don't know how that would play into it. So I'm just going to assume that it doesn't happen. I think that what clouds my judgment is the fact that Solo got over in previous PLEs, I think at Bad Blood. So to me, I just think that everybody wants to know what's that favorite going to be, and that's going to unlock so much stuff. So I just think that Roman Reigns' team is going to win it. I'm not sure. There's so many different things that you could do to protect everybody. You could have Sami Zayn pin, one of the guys from the tag team. You protect Jacob Fatu and you protect Solo, and the other guys can fall by the wayside in terms of, in the end, who ends up losing and taking the final pin. But I just think that in this case, it's good to keep the storyline going with, okay, Solo got over the first couple times. Now Roman Reigns' team gets over. And we now start to answer the question of shifting to, okay, Roman and CM Punk in their program moving forward. What does this mean? How does that entail? Let's get some answers. Is it for the wise man? Is it for, services? Is it for opportunities? Whatever it's going to be, I need to know that, and I need to see some of that without music in the background. So give me Roman Reigns to stand tall and maybe even CM Punk getting the opportunity to get the last pin.
Yeah, I've got the OG bloodline winning this. I think what happens is at the very, very end, CM Punk helps his team win. Roman shakes his hand, and there's this nod of whatever you need, I got you going forward. Thank you for your service type of deal. I do think you could add in a guy like The Rock, and it could make things a little bit wonky. But like you said, I'm going to pretend like it's not going to happen. Got no confirmation that it is going to happen. So I think there are a million ways that you could kind of slice this apple. But I'm going to go with the OG bloodline coming away the victors. So when we go back and we review the cards, we both have the OG bloodline winning. We both have Gunther retaining. You've got the women heels. You've got Liv Morgan, Nia Jax, Raquel Rodriguez, Tiffany Stratton, Candice LeRae winning. I've got the faces. I've got Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair, Bayley, Naomi, and Io Sky winning. We then both have LA Knight retaining his belt against Shinsuke Nakamura in the first of what we're assuming is going to be many matches. And then we both have Braun Breaker winning, even though we would like to see Sheamus or possibly Ludwig Kaiser come away with the win. Again, this is your War Games card taking place on Peacock at 6 o'clock today. What was your show of the week? I think we're both in agreement. SmackDown was pretty great.
SmackDown was legendary. It was a good show. Even though, I think it was pre-taped, I tried to avoid as much of it as possible. But, in the end, even if you know what's going to happen and you get to see it live, oh, my God. SmackDown on USA has delivered, no doubt about it, week in, week out. So SmackDown was the show of the week.
All right, you ready for some news and notes?
Hit me with this week's professional wrestling news and notes. What made your list?
So this WWE champ will be sidelined for a while. So on last week's episode of SmackDown, the women's tag team champ, Jade Cargill, was taken out of action in a backstage tag during her partner Bianca Belair's Women's United States Championship tournament clash with Chelsea Green and Blair Davenport. Following show, WWE diagnosed Jade Cargill with several injuries, like comical amounts of injuries, which is why this could all be a work. With her being replaced in the United States Championship tournament on SmackDown by Lash Legend, who ended up losing on Friday Night SmackDown, as well as her upcoming War Games match by Bayley. In an update from Dave Meltzer in the Wrestling Observer newsletter, the injury angle to Cargill was used to cover up for legitimate injuries to Jade. He noted that the severity of the injuries is not currently known internally, except the fact that those in creative were told that it would be a minimum of 3 months out, maybe longer. This report has since been updated to be a possible neck injury. Now, all of this, that was early in the week. Later in the week, like we talked about when we were talking about this women's War Game match, it could all be a work. It could all be a giant swerve. She could not be hurt. She could be gone for a couple weeks and then come back. So all of this, right, with it being this comical amounts of injuries, which kind of makes you think it could be a work, and her being out 3 months to possibly a year, it could all just be a gigantic whitewash. We have to wait. We have to see. It really feels like this could be a little bit of a worky McWorkathon. We'll see what takes place. WWE has yet to make an announcement on the status of the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships following Jade's injury. I think that will give you the biggest insight as to whether or not she's really hurt. If they come out on Monday Night Raw or Friday Night SmackDown and you're going to have Jade and Bianca relinquish those titles, that's how you'll know if it's real or not. If it's a worky McWorkathon, I think that you can have Jade retain that belt and you can kind of go into whatever that new story is. If they're going to go with it being Bianca, like you said, I think that with that being the case, I don't know how you would figure that out. I mean, maybe she does have to relinquish it. These are some certain things that you need to know what's going on with the injury in order to kind of write the story. So we'll see what takes place. But just know, still a lot of uncertainty with Jade's injury. Could be a work, could be real. We'll have to wait and see. Sticking with injury news, Adam Copeland has been cleared to return. According to a report from PW Insider, Copeland has been cleared for physicality, but is not expected back with AEW regularly until he has completed shooting his latest Hollywood project. Adam Copeland is resuming his role as Ares, the God of War, in the upcoming second season of Disney Plus's series Percy Jackson and the Olympians. According to the report, some of the sources have indicated that shooting is currently underway with the possibility of a wrap date of January 2025. While no specific date in January is confirmed, there is the prospect of a return for the first ever AEW on Max simulcast on January 1st. Now, sticking with AEW, Tony Khan's pulling some WWE moves. A new report provides an update on Rey Fénix's AEW contract ahead of his fellow Lucha brother, Penta El Zero Mero's departure next week. The Lucha Brothers have been at the center of conversation since they became the latest AEW stars expected to jump to WWE. Fightful Select has provided a new report that Rey Fénix's contract has been extended well into 2025 due to the injury time added to his contract, so he won't be leaving with Penta. This is a tactic that WWE regularly used in the past to prevent talent from jumping ship early. This report also notes that Fightful has not heard any discussion about creative plans for Phoenix' return to AEW television. Something Tony Khan will do is if he knows you're leaving, he does not put you on TV. He just pays you to sit at home. This might be the case for Rey Fenix. At one point, Rey Fenix, Penta El Zero Miedo, and Pac of the Death Triangle were slated to win the AEW Trios Championships at All in London. That ended up being Pac. That ended up being Claudio and Wheeler Yuta. And we were like, why the hell is Pac and all this going on? And that's how we ended up getting the Death Riders, with Pac being part of the Death Riders. And that's going to do it for this week's news and notes, my brother.
Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. If you're watching War Games, make sure you hit us up at Detroit Podcast. Oh man, it's going to be a fun card. Hopefully, you know, all the matches typically that WWE put on during pay-per-views are great. I'm hoping that there's a post-event talk. I always love hearing Triple H try to answer questions, see if somebody from Canada tries to be able to get one over. I don't think there's too many controversial issues right now in WWE. Things are rolling pretty smoothly. So it'll be
somebody asked something about a black wrestler, he'll put his foot in his mouth.
That would be funny if Triple H goes, I'd like to highlight the fact that there were 3 African American wrestlers on this card today, and one of them got a win and highlighted. And also, too, we'd like to point out that Raquel Rodriguez is of Hispanic descent, so we are trying to continue our multi-cultural efforts here to diversify WWE. So it's a good opportunity. And that'd be funny if he did that. So, and then on a short note too, Paul Heyman did an interview with CBS Sports. It was pretty good, pretty straightforward. He was in character for the most part, in regards to talking about current events. He's asked about Brock Lesnar, talks about, you know, just some guys that, in the past that relate to, and he talked about his creative endeavors, kind of how he's helping, Bronson Reed, Gunther, kind of the efforts on Raw. So it's a real good interview, 45 minutes. Paul Heyman doesn't do a whole lot of interviews, but it's real good with Shaq Wrestling. I enjoyed it. I watched it on Friday night, and it flowed pretty fast. I always enjoy the interviews that wrestlers do and things like that. So make sure you hit us up. Make sure anywhere that you enjoy audio content, just type in Detroit Sports Podcast, and our content will find you. Hit that subscribe button, and like we said earlier, anything at all you want to talk about. If you completely disagree with our takes on AEW, I had an AEW fan rip me for a Lions take this week, and I'm like, oh my God, you're an AEW fan right now? That means your take is invalid. But it was great to see, you know, people that have different allegiances and loyalties. And also, something that we got to talk about. You know, we didn't bring it up. Didn't make your news this week, but it should next week. Eazy-E, Eric Bischoff, is now going to join and show up on NXT to get involved with the baddest heel in the company, Ridge Holland. And look, we've talked about it before. A lot of podcasters have been ripping AEW, but there's been a lot of bias. And Eric showing up on NXT and having a Legends contract, Bully Ray being on a hot show as well, it kind of is a little interesting that a lot of their slants on AEW have been negative, but they've been in line with what a lot of people say regarding AEW's creativity. So let's see how that progresses over the next 7 days. I can't wait next week, cuz to recap War Games on the next episode of the Doc and Jock Wrestling Podcast.